Paul Skenes threw 7 no-hit innings against the Milwaukee Brewers to clinch a massive series victory. Was the decision to pull him the right one? We're going to discuss on today's episode of Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every single day. My name is Ethan Smith. You can follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates from a lifelong fan to lifelong fans. Today's episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Book today on Booking.com on the website or in the Booking.com app. And folks, Paul Skenes is amazing. We talk about Paul Skenes a lot on this show for very good reason. Paul Skenes, of course, having another masterful performance yesterday against the Milwaukee Brewers. 7 innings he pitched, no hits allowed. Obviously scoreless, and 11 strikeouts on the day against a very strong Milwaukee Brewers lineup, mind you, that has given the Pirates fits all season. Now, this is impressive. This is stuff that we've never seen before. I mean, Paul Skenes is just on another level. He is a different type of pitcher than anything that I've seen, than anything that you've probably seen. What I found even more impressive is this is not the first time that Paul Skenes has done this year. He did it earlier this season in Wrigley Field against the Chicago Cubs. 11 strikeouts, no hits allowed. Led to a big series win for the Pittsburgh Pirates yesterday over Milwaukee. A win that almost feels like it's the kind of victory, you know, that could propel this team finally into that win streak that we've been so badly asking for. And you have a perfect opportunity to do it this weekend with the Chicago White Sox on the docket before the All-Star break, which we'll talk about later on the show. And it's very intriguing to me about how this all worked out, because in light of this being a massive moment for him and a massive moment for this team and a big victory for this team, there was a lot of dialogue that came out of this game about why Paul Skenes was taken out of the game. And there's a multitude of different thought processes here, but I'm going to let Paul and Derek Shelton talk to you.
6th and 7th were impressive because the Brewers did a really good job. I mean, he threw 61 through 3. They made him grind. They gave him really good at bats, but it was impressive that he was able to continue. Not at all. He was tired. I mean, it was, it really didn't have anything to do with the pitch count. Everybody makes it about pitch counts. It was about where he was at. It was about, trusting your eyes, trusting him. When I went and talked to him after that, I mean, he was tired. They did a good job of wearing him down, and, I mean, he gave us everything he had. I think it would be an interesting opportunity. It would be a really unique and cool opportunity for the Pirates, for our organization. If that's, what they ended up deciding, I think we'll be very honored. His ability to adjust within the game, and again, going back to, I thought the Brewers did a really good job with him. I mean, we had not seen anybody make him grind like that early in the game, and even without giving up hits, the fact that he was able to, take his game to the level that he needed to finish it, I thought was important.
He is a rookie. There's supposed to be a little bit of humbling that comes with that.
I don't think anybody thinks that when you come to the big leagues, it's going to be like this. And there's going to be some rough patches that he's gone through. I think we're just speaking, it's a testament to, last year we made the right decision. We made the right decision on how we prepared him coming into the year, whether people thought it was right or wrong. And I think we're seeing a guy that's just really talented.
And it's very interesting that Shelton said some of the things that he said in that post-game interview. I can't get one with Skenes because he was only on MLB Network, so shout out to Sportsnet Pittsburgh for the post-game interview that he had with the media. But I found it very interesting that Shelton mentioned that Skenes was tired, and that was kind of the reasoning behind why he was pulled early in this game, and that was coming off of a seventh inning where Paul Skenes, folks, threw 6 pitches and had 2 amazing plays made by Nick Gonzalez to salvage his no-hit outing. And I think that this is a case really of just 2 different ways of looking at this. Is one, you look at it from the side of, yes, Paul Skenes was already at 99 pitches. He was about to be going into an 8th inning where he was going to exceed 100 pitches no matter what, which he has done before. But on the flip side of that, I understand where Derek Shelton was coming from, giving him a fresh inning, letting Colin Holderman come in and finish the 8th inning, starting it and finishing it, which he eventually did. And then, of course, you bring in Aroldis Chapman. Now, Paul Skenes was also speaking about having guys like Colin Holderman and like Aroldis Chapman who were very integral in that win yesterday, and they very much were. I know Colin Holderman got into a little bit more trouble there in the 8th inning, and it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario with this. I mean, if you would have kept Skenes in the game, he gets pulled as soon as he gives up a base runner. I mean, that's just the matter of the fact there. And it's all left to your imagination at this point. You don't know if Paul Skenes was going to throw a no-hitter in the 8th inning. You don't know what was going to happen in the 8th inning, especially in a 1-0 ball game in a rubber match against the team that is currently leading your division as we speak right now. So I can understand where Shelton was coming from. I just think that I would have liked it to be portrayed a little bit better. I don't think using the excuse that he was tired is exactly the right excuse in this scenario. And I don't even really want to call it an excuse because it's not. And we hear all about salvaging these guys for their pitch counts and all of this other stuff. So this can be a little bit demeaning because, yes, Paul Skenes had a no-hitter. He was doing a lot of very good things against a very strong Milwaukee Brewers lineup that features 2 All-Stars in William Contreras and Christian Yelich. He was doing things that we don't see very often really at all in Pirates fandom. If you look across Pirates history, the pitching is there, but it's not exactly all that great. I mean, you have some greats like Candelario and Bob Friend and Steve Blass and a lot of these other guys, but when you go to the nitty-gritty of this decision, that was a decision that was made for a multitude of reasons. One, the team has obviously said they want to make sure these guys can be available in September and October. How much does 10 or 15 more pitches really go into that? Don't really know. And if he would have lost, if Derek Shelton would have made this decision, and let's say Colin Holderman doesn't strike out William Contreras with the bases loaded in the 8th and gives up the lead and the Pirates lose this game, folks, it would have been World War III if that would have happened. But this is where this all gets too complicated to really say, was the decision right or was the decision wrong? Because it's already like everything is played out the way it played out. You can run through so many different formulas in your head about, well, Skenes might have thrown a no-hitter, or Holderman might have given the game up, or Chapman might have never even entered the game. There's a lot of different things that go into this. I just, again, feel like Derek Shelton and really the team at this point could be a lot more clear about what the plan is with these guys, especially when it comes to Paul Skenes and Jared Jones, because it's not very clear at all. I mean, we don't really have a concise, set in stone thing that we know about how they're managing their innings and how things are going to be going. And on top of all this too, Skenes did get a lot of work in those first 3 or 4 innings. I believe he was at like 67 pitches through 3 innings or 4 innings. So there was never really a chance that he was going to finish this game anyway. He was never going to go 120, 130 pitches to finish off this game, especially, again, with it only being a 1-run lead, because that's another argument that you can bring up, is that if the Pirates were up by a lot more against Milwaukee, Skenes stays in the game there. But at the end of the day, it was still a masterful performance. The Pirates still won the game, which was the most important thing. I don't really care really what happened if Skenes got pulled or not, as long as they won the game. And they eventually did, and that's what it all matters in the end, is that they got a massive series win against the team that is currently leading their division, and Paul Skenes threw a hitless outing. That should be the conversation, not really that the decision that Shelton made was right or wrong, because there's really no right answer and there's really no wrong answer, because there's too many factors that factored into that decision. But either way, Paul Skenes dazzled. The Pirates won. They have a golden opportunity to go into the All-Star break with momentum as they head to the other side of Chicago to face the lowly Chicago White Sox, a team they cannot afford to sleepwalk against. We're going to discuss this series in depth, talk about Garrett Crochet and his brilliance and why the Pirates have to win this series and really almost have to sweep this series here on today's episode of Locked On Pirates. Today's episode of Locked On Pirates is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you've always secretly wanted to learn more about. And yes, we're talking about your rival cities with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival city. From hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. So book today on Booking.com, on the website, or in the Booking.com app. Today's episode of Locked On Pirates is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Millions of parts for your MVP, and you can win every time with parts that fit your ride, because passion, drive, and patience are the formula for winning championships and also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. And folks, after making Locked On Pirates your first listen of the day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, make sure you make Locked On Sports Today your second listen, and then your third listen should just be the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel, which brings you all of your news and analysis in the sports world from local hosts like myself every single day, 24/7 on YouTube and Amazon Fire TV. It is absolutely awesome. Sometimes I just play it in the background while I'm doing chores around the house. Sometimes I sit down and listen to it when I'm dwelling in other sports like college football, basketball, football, all that stuff. Right now, though, Pittsburgh Pirates have one more series before the All-Star break comes their way, and it is going to Chicago. Now, the Pirates have obviously went to Chicago twice, I believe, up to this point. It's either once or twice. I can't remember how many times, but they've played in Chicago already against the Chicago Cubs. They played in Wrigley Field. Now they go to the other part of Chicago with the Chicago White Sox, a team that is definitely on a very different playing field than pretty much everybody in Major League Baseball at this point. The Chicago White Sox have been a dreadful team this year, 27-68 entering this series against the Pittsburgh Pirates, and really not a lot to like about the Chicago White Sox team. Every team obviously has something to like about them, and there are some things that you can look at with this White Sox team that are intriguing, like what do they do with Luis Robert Jr., a guy, that is going to be a potential big player as far as the trade market is concerned. Do the White Sox move on from him? And if so, where does he end up? What team gets the services of a very controllable, young, and strong center fielder in Luis Robert? But what's more important, more than likely, is a guy that will likely be staying with the White Sox. And could also field some interest around the league and likely will with where the White Sox are right now, is Garrett Crochet, folks. Garrett Crochet has had a phenomenal year for this team, transitioning from being a reliever to a left-handed starter. And the Pirates do have success against left-handed pitching, but Crochet is on another level. He has a 3.8 WAR right now. He's 6-6 on the season with a 3.08 ERA. He only went 4 innings in his last start, though, against the Miami Marlins, giving up 5 hits, 7 innings in the start prior to that against Colorado, 5 2/3 against the Dodgers, 6 against Houston, and 7 against Seattle. So that's what he's done in his past 5 games. But you're looking at a guy who has a 12.5 strikeouts per 9, the walks per 9 only at a 2, the FIP at a 2.43. He's just been absolutely amazing. 146 strikeouts, which I believe leads all of Major League Baseball for Garrett Crochet. So the Pirates are going to have their work cut out for them, especially for a guy that's only walked 22 compared to those 146 strikeouts that he has. But when you look at the rest of this team, you're going to have Chris Flexen on Saturday, and then you're going to have to be determined on Sunday. For the Pittsburgh Pirates, we don't know who's starting just yet at the time of recording. It does appear that we might see Marco Gonzalez maybe come back and make a start tonight, especially with Luis Ortiz already filling that other spot in the rotation that is currently out of order right now because of the Falter and Jones injuries. And then you, of course, have Mitch Keller finishing it off for you on Sunday. So when you look at a series like this, it's kind of hard not to expect the Pirates to win this series, but every series is different. The White Sox have not won a series since June 30th against the Colorado Rockies. They've lost their last 3 series. They're coming off of a series loss against the Minnesota Twins. They've just not been a good baseball team. But you look at their home and road splits, 17-31 at home, 10-37 on the road. So they're a better team when they're at home. So you look at some of these things and you're probably thinking, Ethan, why are you even trying to be positive about the Chicago White Sox? Sweeping a team in baseball is hard. It genuinely is. It's one of the hardest things in sports to do, is to sweep a baseball team. And when you're looking at a team like Chicago, I think a lot of fans just expect the Pirates to do it, and it would be massive for the Pittsburgh Pirates to do it, because if they can sweep the Chicago White Sox, they would be at 500 going into the All-Star break, which would be a massive shot in the arm for this team wrapping up July, especially with the trade deadline right around the corner. So when you consider all of these things and you look at what's happening here and how the Pirates can go into this series and win, well, the last 2 series now, we've seen this Pirates team in that first game specifically have a massive offensive outburst. That's going to be a lot harder against a guy like Garrett Crochet, but if they can replicate that again, you'll be sure that they'll win at least that first game, because they've done it now over the last 2 series. The problem has been in the following games that the offense just does not show up. The offense does not find that consistency that they're looking for. Like, yes, it was nice to win that game yesterday, and thank God Paul Skenes had a phenomenal outing, but they only scored 1 run thanks to Yasmani Grandal, the notoriously offensively inclined Yasmani Grandal. So you got to be scoring runs consistently, especially against a White Sox team that is just dreadful, man. And I don't mean disrespect to them at all, but it's just true. I mean, when you're 41 games under 500 up to this point, it's hard to not call a team dreadful and bad and all of the other adjectives that are just not good things to say about a baseball team. And if the Pirates can just hit offensively in this series, I think they can get a sweep. Series win has to be the bare minimum. You have to win 2 out of 3 in this one. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. You cannot leave this series and leave Chicago going into the All-Star break coming off the heels of a series loss. You have to win the series no matter what. That is just clear-cut and period to the point. The Pirates have to win this series. A sweep is ideal because, again, you would be 500. You'd be going into the All-Star break winners of 5 of your last 6 games or 6 of your last 7 games if you can get to that point. And again, I would assume that the pitching is going to be good in this series. The White Sox offense doesn't really have a ton to offer outside of Luis Robert and then Paul DeJong. Those have kind of been the two guys that have done really anything for this offense. And then against their pitching, Crochet is going to be a matchup. He genuinely is. He's going to be a tough matchup for this team. It's just a matter of, can the Pirates attack him like they've attacked previously against left-handed pitching, and can they get after the two guys and Chris Flexen and whoever they throw Sunday that they should get after. So expect a series win, hope for a sweep, but that's the bare minimum of what they need. That is the baseline of what has to happen this weekend against the Chicago White Sox team. We'll see what happens. We're going to continue the mock trade series here in just a minute, where I discuss some of the Taylor Ward things that we heard or didn't hear. I don't really know how to really talk about it, as well as another player that I think the Pirates could target come trade deadline, which is right now, season. We're going to talk about that all in today's episode of Locked On Pirates to wrap it up. Today's episode is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Here on Locked On Pirates, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garner your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. So don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon, and be sure to mention Locked On Pirates at checkout and you'll receive a $250 discount on all their services. Today's episode is brought to you by Ibotta. Sandals, sunscreen, snacks for the kids. What do these have in common? You're probably buying a ton of them this summer, but don't stress about the cost, because you can use Ibotta and get cash back on all of your purchases when you stock up on all your summer essentials. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. You can earn on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys. So you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. You could save on over 2,400 brands and shop at over 1,000 retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and use code LOCKEDONMLB to start saving money now. And welcome to the final part of today's episode of Locked On Pirates here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates, every single day. You're going to be getting an episode tomorrow. You're going to be getting an episode Sunday. And then we're going to have a full week of guests coming to the show next week for All-Star Week. It's going to be an awesome next week and change here on this show. And it's going to be an awesome rest of the season here on this show. And right now it's trade season, which things are heating up. We're starting to hear some things like Pete Alonso may be available and the Houston Astros may be interested. We've heard that the Marlins look like they're going to be trading Jazz Chisholm Jr. I know some of Yins want Jazz Chisholm in a Pittsburgh Pirates uniform, but we even got a little nugget the other day about Taylor Ward. Taylor Ward is a guy, outfielder, Los Angeles Angels, rebuilding team, controllable asset. Now, it was reported by Paul Skenes that the Pirates were trying to finish a trade for Taylor Ward. It was debunked by Robert Murray saying that there has been interest, but nothing has really been close. But it at least gives you the idea now of what the Pirates may be looking at and giving you an idea that it sounds like the front office might actually be trying to add to this team like we've been begging them to do with this pitching staff that they have at their disposal. Ward would be an awesome addition. He's a controllable asset. He brings power from the right side. He could play a little bit of first base if he has to. He could play the corner outfield spots, would probably slot into that right field slot alongside Sawinski and Reynolds or whoever they want to throw in center field. That's something that you could see. We'll wait and see what happens as far as the future on that Taylor Ward conversation. Taylor Ward, I do think, is a guy that will have plenty of suitors around the league, seeing as he is a controllable asset and does bring some pop to the lineup. Hasn't played as great as he started the year as of late, but maybe a change of scenery for a guy like that could work out really well for him. And why not talk about Luis Robert Jr. while we're playing the Chicago White Sox this weekend? Luis Robert, you guys have heard me mention it before. He's one of my favorite players in baseball. I love Luis Robert. He is an awesome player to watch when he's healthy. Health is the biggest question that you have to talk about when you're talking about Luis Robert Jr. Seeing as he only has 150 at-bats so far this year and he's batting .220, you can tell that he's been injured for quite a bit. But you're talking about a guy who's a career 13.8 WAR player, 1,500 hits, 274 batting average on his career. And then you look at what he's done recently. I mean, you look at last season, 264 with an 857 OPS. 2021 was obviously his best year when he had a 338 batting average and a 946 OPS, although he dealt with injuries in that season as well. So you wonder what kind of market you're going to have for a guy like Luis Robert, who in my big trade piece that I mentioned, you're talking about a guy who's on a very affordable contract, 6 years, $50 million, that doesn't allow him to hit free agency until 2028. So he's going to come at a hefty price tag. He just has the name value. He has the play on the field. He's going to have plenty of suitors, much like Jazz Chisholm. I think the Phillies are a team to watch when you're talking about Luis Robert Jr. and Jazz Chisholm. I don't know if the Marlins are going to want to trade Jazz to an in-division rival, but this is a guy that you look at that you would slot him into center field right away. He's a fine enough defender to figure out or manage the position. He would bring immediate pop to this lineup. He can spray the ball to all parts of the field. It would be a massive addition. It's just a matter of, is the price worth it to bring in a guy like Luis Robert when you're going to probably have to trade? You're thinking potentially an Anthony Solometo or a Bubba Chandler or a Termar Johnson or any of those top 5 prospects. You're going to have to trade those guys if you're getting a guy like Luis Robert Jr. So it comes down to, is Ben Cherington comfortable in doing a move like that? And do the Pirates even really need to? You've heard me mention really a lot about why I don't think the Pirates have to go get one of the marquee trade targets like a Jazz or like a Vlad Guerrero Jr. or like a Luis Robert, because yes, it would be nice, but do you want to rip apart a prospect system that you have that is so deep right now? And that both works in your favor and also doesn't, because yes, they have the prospect capital to make any move happen. It's just a matter of, do you want to trade guys like Johnson or Chandler or Solometo when they could be contributors next year? Now, you don't know what kind of contributors are going to be, and that also allows you, though, to what I've mentioned with guys like Jesse Winker and Randy Arozarena and Ryan McMahon, who would also come at a pretty decent tag, and Brent Rooker, that you could dip down lower into your top 10 and then into your top 15 and top 20 and make moves with those guys. So Luis Robert, I'm not going to completely rule it out for the Pirates, but I do think the likelihood of him coming to Pittsburgh is lower than it is him actually coming. So we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. Next week, I'm sure we're going to hear a ton more on the trade front. But folks, we'll be back tomorrow on Locked On Pirates here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates, every single day. My name is Ethan Smith. Follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your news, analysis, and opinions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Find the show on YouTube and Spotify because it's free and available to you. Jens, thank you so much for tuning in. Love you so much. See you tomorrow. But until then, See yins on the flip side.